Thanks for joining us to greet the week with her Huddle and Wild and Well Together. Today we're talking about decision fatigue. I feel like this might even be more pronounced, more relevant as a topic in the middle of like the holiday craziness. So excited to dig into this today. When we say decision fatigue, I do just want to give like a high level to that. What we're really talking about is when you have that sense of overwhelm basically in your mind or your brain, you've been making decisions all day, you're starting to run out of fuel, you feel like you don't know where to pull from to answer questions. Questions and decisions can feel heavier and tougher. So hopefully you all can relate to that. That has probably happened to some of us at different points of our life, but that's where we're going today. What do you got, Becca?
It's the invisible list
Mm.
that we unpack as women, or that we don't know how to stop managing it. So digging into that, one, to say we're not alone in that, and two, hopefully some resolution or some practical tools to help us try and do so. And I'm someone who really struggles with decision fatigue. I think maybe we all do, but I identify with this a ton more on the client side and not on the practitioner side. And so, this is something I could bring up with my therapist, or dig into books, or find some practical resources for me to do and to learn. How do I have energy? Where can I offload some of these things so that way I don't continue to hold these lists at the length that I currently do, and maybe release some of those. So we'll get into all those. But yes, Merry Christmas for those of you that celebrate it. So fun, especially with littles in our house. My unpopular opinion this week, I'll bring one in. Normally you bring in fantastic ones. So we'll see what the listeners say, what the team says. But my unpopular opinion is Christmas brunch is superior to Christmas dinner. I know the Grinch classic movie talks about roast beast and sitting down to a beautiful plate, like the table is spread. There's lots of different meals and beautiful colors and candles lit and chargers and all the fancy things. I personally am like, let's do Christmas Eve dinner. Let's then open presents and have fun in the morning. And then let's put bacon out. Let's put eggs and pancakes and sausage and like a breakfast bar. Let's have yogurt. Let's have whatever in a mid morning. And then let's just snack the rest of the afternoon on treats and fun things. So leave the roast beef, leave the ham, in my opinion, and let's do a breakfast brunch. Let it be more casual. We're in our jams anyways. What are your thoughts, Jen?
I like it. I think I have to agree with you. I think my precursor to this also too is that I feel like Christmas Eve dinner is sort of the dinner pinnacle, and then those leftovers we would eat for Christmas dinner. But Christmas brunch was the time to have fresh everything in the morning. There's usually football on, opening presents, but I think I agree. Christmas brunch is where it's at.
Curious listeners, please let us know. Until this came up between Jen and I was like, is Christmas brunch a thing for everyone? I never put weight to it. And I always thought of like with ham or whatever people like to have the night before or the night of. But for me, it's worth the brunch. So listeners, let us know. We'd love to hear, do you brunch or do you dinner or both for Christmas?
Love it.
Okay. And then Jen, you bring us into word of the week this week. What is that? What do you have for us?
Yeah. So word of the week, as we dive into a lot of these topics, we're really trying to think about what other cultures and regions of the world have to say on this topic and how they sort of put language around some of these similar concepts. So this week, for decision fatigue, we found a phrase in German that means something a little bit similar. It's not exactly the same, but it's related. And the phrase, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation. So if you're German, please correct me in the comments. The phrase is die Qual der Wahl. And it means basically the overwhelming burden of having too many options. So you can think of that as, you're looking at 30 different options of something. Maybe it's ice cream, maybe it's cereal in the grocery store, and that overwhelming sensation of like, which one do I pick? And in German, they call that die Qual der Wahl. Again, my pronunciation needs help. It helps us to know that in other places in the world, there are similar concepts and other people deal with the same thing.
Which it makes us feel more human, right? Of like whatever's happening elsewhere, we're more similar than we are different. That helps me at least.
Yeah.
I was just in Germany and in a European region celebrating my mom's 70th, and it was so fun. And I think what you said sounds good to me. The only change, and I don't speak German whatsoever, is that W's they pronounce as V's, like Wahl. And the reason we learned that is because here we are going through Christmas markets. That's what my mom wanted to do. And we got to this section in Austria, and they had this beautiful chorus singing. It was like a community chorale and they were singing and they chose to sing some English songs. And
Oh.
so it was Walking in a Winter Wonderland. And Mallory and my sister and I loved it and we couldn't get over it because it just sounded way more charming than what we say of walking in a winter wonderland
Yeah.
here. But all of the W's had V's. So that made me
That's a memorable reminder of, like, the language component.
yes. So I know like very few words in German. And then we went to other Slovak countries and stuff. And so there's other language spoken there too. And so it wasn't like I learned a ton of German, but using V's. So, anyways, yeah, going into language, lots of options there. And I think what sticks out for me in this is this idea of, hey, let's eliminate. Is it really necessary to have 30 flavors of yogurt or to have 10 options for a job? Or I work with a lot of youth and college age students. And so does it make sense to have 45 different majors? Or is it like, hey, let's figure out what makes you come alive? And
Mhm.
then figure out what the major is there rather than looking at a list of like, what do I wanna do? And so I don't know if I have the right answer, but it's at least some good food for thought for me of maybe I need to eliminate some options for me. Like, I think of Steve Jobs or other people who wore just black clothes or had the exact uniform, and I'm like, "Man, if I got up every morning and I knew exactly what I was gonna wear, that would eliminate a chunk of time for me. That would eliminate a chunk of brain space." There
One thing on decision fatigue that is interesting is how decision fatigue, when you're in a place where you're compromised, like your processing power is compromised in this way, how you can, I mean, I assume, and I think reflecting on when and where I've felt this, you're almost like set up to make bad decisions, you know? And I feel like there's something in there that we have to maybe think about a little bit in terms of what are some of those decisions that are a little bit lower stakes or they're more routine. How can I simplify or streamline those? Because if I make air quotes a bad decision on what I choose to wear on a certain day, maybe the stakes are a little bit different if it's a bigger decision you're forced to make. I was reading that the average person in one day makes about 30,000 decisions or is processing anywhere from 30,000 decisions a day. I think the number was a little bit inflated from the research based on how they defined things. But even if you take it with a grain of salt, we're still in the thousands in
yeah.
one day. And that was mind blowing to me. I didn't even register that for myself.
And I'm curious, and you may not have these answers, but are those like, does our brain automatically think of, do I start with my left foot or my right foot? Or is it more not autonomic and it's more like, okay, am I going to call Jen at 9:05 or am I going to call her at 9:10? Or those types of things? Is it that we're conscientious or is it in the subconscious?
I think it's
Okay.
both. I don't know that for sure, but to get to a number like 30,000 in my mind, I'm like, how do we get there? Like, how are we doing that every day? You know? I mean,
Yes.
it's crazy.
Because even if it's, let's say that's inflated, I'm just for the sake of conversation,
Yeah.
that's inflated by 10x, that's still to your point, 3,000 decisions that we're making. And then how much weight do some of them hold? Nick is really working with me to automate some things and
Cool.
let go of options and just
Yeah.
saying, like, just pick something. However, I have a question back to you. Oh, but I see your wheels turning. Do you have something before we go
No,
in?
I was curious in what areas you're doing that.
Like kids' food.
Okay.
I could just make what you want for you and they will learn to eat. And we can have peanut butter if they don't eat it. And that can be their one choice. And you don't need to be a chef for them. And like more than you are for anyone else. And so that's an easy one. Or let them pick their clothes. Like that's something. So mine more right now is in parenting. And I think it's because building out this business, we head into courses next week. And so just some of the things that I've had more capacity to put in towards parenting. Now it's like, okay, parenting's still my top priority, yet I need to give time to other things. And so where can I offload some of these decisions that are non-consequential? Like there's not, whether they choose to wear a blue outfit or a red outfit, it's just this idea of give two options,
Mm,
both of which I'm okay with the answer. And so I'm like, hey, pick a red or pick this green. Which t-shirt do you want, Marcus? And he picks one of them. And I don't actually care which color it is, but he picks one of them and then we're done and we move on. Because
yeah.
sometimes Nick will look at me and he's like, Becky, you just gave him two options and then you give him two more. So becoming more self-aware of I want to be accommodating as a mom and a
Yeah.
parent, and that's important. And also he's 4 years old. Kid could be naked and he wouldn't care.
Is that a third option, mom?
Exactly, though. Exactly. And so, like, why am I holding that weight when I could just say, "Hey, Marcus, go get dressed, pick out whatever fun thing you want." And he goes and does it. And then I can spend my time, my other 29,998 decisions on something to not do with parenting.
Well, even
Um,
the nuance in that though of, "Hey, Marcus, do you want the red or green shirt? You pick which one." Versus, "Hey, Marcus, what do you wanna wear today?"
Mhm.
2 totally different questions.
Yes.
The "what do you wanna wear today?" open-ended in terms of, like, the options that could be on the table there, it's like, "Whoa, that's probably a lot of options." And that is
Yes.
the gift that you're doing that and just reducing it down to 2 options. This is a practice I see a lot of my friends who are parents do this with their kids, and I'm like, "Do we need to start doing this as adults too?" Because I think it's really helpful, actually.
For sure. One of the things that Nick and I talk about is how can we become more specific in
Mm,
our requests to each other and in general of saying it comes from a people pleasing place. It comes from wanting to be inclusive, which those two things are not bad in their nature. However,
right.
when we fault to them over and over and over again, it actually creates more stress for those
Uh,
around us and ourselves. And it does the inverse of what we want it to. And so to your point of Marcus, go pick out a shirt. Then he knows exactly, okay, I gotta go pick out a shirt. If I get more specific of like, hey Marcus, go pick the red or blue shirt. Okay, now that's even more directive. He still goes and has some agency, and yet he picks it out. And
mhm.
the task is done, bows on it, signed, sealed, delivered. Then for us, let's say like in work, if I see my colleagues and I'm like, hey, do you think you'll get that research paper done by Friday? And then it's, hey, I really need to work on this one piece. Do you think you could get back to me on the topic of X by Thursday so then I can turn it around and have the rest out rather than me saying, hey, do you think that you could get to this by Friday? Not even by Friday, like, hey, where are you at in the project? Right? Like, that's
Yeah,
so high level and they don't really know where to go. What am I actually asking in that question? And I think
mhm,
that that's what decision fatigue is. What are we actually asking in all of our decisions? Because a decision is an answer to a question.
yeah,
And so really honing in on what am I asking here? And then is it is there weight that needs to be there or can I let some of these go and be automated? Do I have a deadline for work? If I do, then that's a boundary that I need to follow through on. And so let me follow through on that. But some of the other things, maybe I can let go, or maybe I can put to someone else, or maybe I can say, hey, it's important, but it's not urgent
yeah.
and start to follow through on some of those to mitigate. I got a question for you. Does being the default person create anxiety in your life? For example, when you're out with a bunch of friends or decisions are being made of where to have dinner and they're like, "Hey Jen, where do you want to go?" Do you like being that person? Does that create anxiety? Or you're like, "Nope, let's just handle it and move on."
Growing to be more of that, which is let's just make a decision and go. I think I was doing I do find myself being the default decision maker in a lot of different spheres of my life. And I definitely in my earlier years was trying to do that thing where I'm like, well, I don't want to make a decision that somebody else might not like or try to impossibly people please with a group of really quiet, unopinionated people. That never goes well. So I feel like I am more and more trying to drive decisions and know that if someone feels strongly, I invite them to disagree with me or course correct is sort of where I'm thinking about this. I think especially in being in sort of this role of helping people design, execute book trips and itineraries and lead trips. I find myself in this role a lot. And even on this group trip that I led earlier this year, this came up a couple times where I was trying to make a decision to accommodate everybody in the group, which I think is the wrong objective because I don't know that it's fully possible all the time. There's also almost like stages that precede decisions in our life that I wonder if they contribute to the fatigue of the decision. Like I'm anticipating that I'm going to have to decide where to go to dinner tonight for 9 people. I'm anticipating that and that is overwhelming just in the lead up. And then I'm going to have to identify options and reduce the optionality down to 3 places, say. That takes decisions. Then there's the act of deciding. Am I deciding? Am I letting the group decide? Is it a combo of the both of them? And then as women, we do this a little bit more, but like monitoring that decision. Is everybody happy with the decision
Right.
once it's made and we're doing it? And, sort of like scanning, pulse checking. So the decision in of itself is one part, and then it's sandwiched with dynamics on either end
Mhm.
that, and I think this probably comes up especially for those of you listening who find yourself as the default person. Maybe it's at home, coordination of things at home to run your house and keep things moving. I think a lot of those things are true too. It's like you're anticipating what day do I need to get my house cleaned if I have guests coming? What day did the bed sheets need to get changed? And it's I don't know. It's almost like more of like a process than singular decision in some cases.
For sure, across the board, we probably to the fault of our forebrain, to the fault of our prefrontal cortex, as compared to majority of other mammals, is that we're like, "Oh, because we can make a decision and have cognition, let's then give ourselves even more opportunities." And then we actually make ourselves dumber by giving ourselves too many opportunities, right? Where it's like, I think most people that sign up to go with you, they want someone who's gonna guide their trip. That's why they're choosing for you to do it. And yet you wanna provide an excellent trip and therefore the weight and the decisions. And I would argue, again, welcome to feedback, welcome to pushback, is that we as women have more decision fatigue because we look for that response that you just got, that feedback loop of once I've made the decision, now I
Yeah.
want to be affirmed in it.
Yeah.
And also, as I'm going through the process, I'm calculating what the feelings are of other people. I'm calculating what the hopes are of other people, which are all decisions in itself. Whereas sometimes I'll ask Nick a question and he's brilliant. So that statement is true. He's brilliant. And I ask him a detailed question. He's like, I don't know. I don't need to know that. And I'm like, how have you not just sat here after we've had this intake of information from a friend, from news or wherever, and pondered it and dissected it and analyzed it and thought, 10 different things. And he's like, it doesn't pertain to me. It doesn't hold a lot of weight. I
Yeah.
don't need to in this moment, maybe down the road, but it doesn't affect my highest values and priorities. Therefore, I don't need to. And I'm like, yeah, me too. Right. While meanwhile, I have 15 things in my head. Or we get into a, a marital discussion and he's like, do you have anything else? And we've already had our discussion and I have like 10 more things in my head. And I'm like, no, because to what point? But realistically, I do. But I know being married for 9+ years now that he's like, I've sat in this, I've been with you in it and done a beautiful job in it. And he asks again. And I'm like, nah, just let this man go. He's literally just sat here for an hour that we've worked through tears and breathing and everything else. Like, do I need to actually hold any more weight on decisions? So, my stake in the claim is that we as women do an unjust service to ourselves by saying, let me hold these 15,000, 30,000 things. Could we whittle it down
Mm,
simply by saying, like, release some control, release some analytical analysis within our brain?
yeah.
What are your thoughts? Do you think we as women hold more weight?
I do. I do. And another reason why I'm wondering if that is true, this concept of multitasking often comes up. This feels somewhat parallel or connected. It's almost like because we're able to more easily or smoothly do sort of that multitasking and have multiple tabs open, so to speak, in our brain at one point in time. I don't know if that also it's a strength, but then it sort of becomes this double-edged sword in the sense that because it's a strength, then we are taking on more of that, especially on the home front,
Yeah.
because we can. And yet, when you hit this point of decision fatigue, it can feel like you literally hit a wall. It's like any type of question. It could be the stupidest, smallest question, but if you've been in the depths of decision fatigue, it's like, I can't answer it. I cannot answer this question. Even if it's, "Hey, can I have some of your ice cream?" I'm like, I don't care. I can't even.
So I just read a book. It was on fun. I'll put it in the show notes because I was just looking for it and I don't have the name. But it talked about how multitasking is actually us bouncing from tab to tab, as you just said that. So that was
Mm,
beautifully stated because I thought about that too, is that we are not able to do two things at once. Our brain cannot compute. It's like a computer. It cannot compute to do two things at once. However, ours can shuffle quicker than men's at a higher rate.
mhm.
And so I do think that there's that piece where then it's like, and then it's like this circle of doom if we think about a computer where our brain just literally is like, work too hard, work too hard, work too hard. Instead of us saying, let's shut down for a while, we're like, let's open another tab to see if we can figure out why that tab's not working. Or
Right.
let me jump on 5 more bouncing back and forth. And so the book doesn't get into that piece, but I just think how much better suited could we be as women when we say, let me focus on this first, figure it out, and then move on to the next detail. And again, that's not a bash on us as women. That's a, hey, us being able to multitask or move from tab to tab very quickly is a superpower in many ways.
Yeah.
And the kryptonite to that is, at what point do we allow our minds to settle? At
Yeah.
what point do we allow our bodies to rest? That way we can come into that place of calm.
And
But
another question I have is, I think it's an interesting question for us to think about, which is like for yourself, when do you start noticing sort of the first signs of decision fatigue setting in? And how can I start to detect that as a yellow light before it's like a blinking red
yeah.
overload?
Mhm.
And how would that help me avoid full on decision fatigue and being extremely unhelpful to anyone around me? And also just feeling pretty crappy myself when I'm in that.
If I feel my body getting hot, if I feel my brain feeling exhausted,
Yeah.
that's the moment for me to say, I'm aware that I'm starting to have decision fatigue.
Hmm.
That's a word that we can say 10 times faster, phrase decision fatigue. That's what I think I'm gonna commit to. And then we head into the new year. So thinking through that of like, okay, when I feel my body getting tired or that I'm starting to get frustrated that I'm making the 10th decision or deciding for the 10th time what restaurant we're gonna go to or where we're gonna gather as a family or whatever decision, rather than becoming exhausted, burnt out, all of that. Either I ask someone else to take it
Yeah.
I I see where I need to go, kinda choose your own adventure of what do I do then? Because 'cause I've never become aware of that, or up until this point, I've yet to become aware of that. So that as you ask that question, I don't have that answer, but my commitment in not knowing that is let's see what plays out over the next 2 weeks through New Year's and beyond, and I'll get back to you. What
Yeah.
about for you? Do you have an indicator or a no?
And I think the answer to this probably differs person to person, but I do think for me, it's something around, I don't know that I have perfect language for it, but it's something around my fuse just gets really short, or I just start getting short with
Mm,
interaction
yes.
or people around me. And I'm like, wait, it's happening. It's starting to happen. It's starting to
Yeah.
happen. So I try to at least just register it and then try to triage it or sort of intervene if I can. Sometimes I can't, and it just sort of is what it is. And sometimes I just am like, okay, I have to hit full fatigue in this decision sort of hamster wheel that I feel in order to like fully stop and pause and force myself to course correct. So it's a both and for me. I try to intervene. Sometimes I just can't, and I see the train coming, and the train keeps going. I do think, especially around the holidays, even thinking really practically about where this probably shows up for people. If you're with extended family, and even your example of going out to dinner, if you're with extended family and it's like, all right, let's go out to dinner. Where are we going to go? That is so real, and
Yes.
probably like a group of like 8 people, 6 people, 10. That's like, okay, now I got to think about what's the where, can they facilitate us, da da da. And then you got to communicate it to the group. And so I like your idea though of almost being like, here are 2 options. And if you don't like those 2 options, a third could be someone else can decide. I think that that is so helpful and can be freeing too.
And then there's agency for all, there's voices to be heard because I think we can swing on the pendulum where it's like, well, now I'm not giving you any options, right? And this, well, that's not very inviting either. And so
Right.
that's when I realized I have burnout. And
Uh-huh.
so I think that decision fatigue is a stepping stool to burnout ultimately. And the
Yeah.
more we can eliminate some of these decisions by automating things, by giving them to someone else, by taking time to reset ourselves, that then we can say, hey, actually, I'm not burnt out on this topic or with work or with a spouse or with whoever. It's it's the culmination of all of this that I'm feeling exhausted and I'm taking out on work. I'm taking it out on my spouse. I'm taking it out wherever it may
Yes.
be and saying, okay, how do I recheck in?
Now that we're talking about this, I had an example come up for me the other day that I'm remembering. I'm feeling very decision pressured at work right now. And I was
Okay.
watching Selling the OC on Netflix, which is like this
Okay.
real estate show. And my husband comes sort of in and out when I'm watching these shows. I am on the couch watching it, I'm fully engaged. He comes in and out, sort of just like, what's happening now? Oh, is so and so still with so and so? Is so and so still on the show? Sort of coming back and forth. Selling the OC for me is this is not mission critical stuff. It's just
Yeah.
light viewing. And he was coming in and out asking me questions. And I was so supremely irritated because he was asking me, and I could sense myself like I would have this answer in my head that was like, if you want to know the answer to that question, why don't you come sit down on the couch and watch it? And then it doesn't come out, but I'm like, "Okay, because you're reacting like this internally to something this low stakes, that's a yellow light. That's a yellow light." And I had to like pause myself and like just pause the show and just like fully digest what was happening and be like, "You are really getting upset right now about your husband asking you questions about the show that you enjoy watching."
Yeah.
That's a good checkpoint.
Is it really about the show? Is it really about the questions? Like, what is it actually?
Holy
Which then is a whole nother decision to go down. But I hear you in that fully. And I think that that's something that happens with our phones too, right? If I'm honest with my phone and
yes.
I'm on it and I'm trying to handle something, multitasking,
Yeah,
and the kids come up, I need to set my phone down and look at them, address whatever they need, and then go back to it because sometimes business just needs to be handled and that needs to be handled. However, the more I can separate that,
yeah.
and we need to give humans attention first. And so I think that that's something of our struggles. And so what you just said, although funny and vulnerable, is highly relatable. And you're not alone in that. You're just brave to share it because so many of us do that. And if we call it what it is, my question was going to be, and it still will be, and I'll answer mine is who do you take your decision fatigue out on most? Mine is my husband and or my sister and my mom hear the venting of it. But
Mm.
unfortunately, if someone gets the short end of the straw, it's Nick, unfortunately.
I think I would agree with that. I think sometimes it shows up for work for me, but I actually think at work, what ends up happening is that I do what you said, which is like eliminate choice and I just
Mhm,
go. And
mhm.
that's not helpful in its own right. But I think the brunt of it, or I mean, it's probably just a proximity thing. It's like you are day to day with this person, the volume of interactions is so high, it's almost bound to come out unintentionally on you because you're my partner, which I don't like, but it
Yeah,
seems like a realization of how it goes.
and a safe space, right? Like ultimately it's not a bad thing. It's a hey, how do I mitigate so it's less and less or less frequent or when it does it's not amped at him. It's that what you just shared of like, whoa, I'm getting really frustrated with you, John. Why don't I go ahead and like turn this off and like, process myself as opposed to like napping at you or
Yeah,
whatever response you might have that would not be helpful.
yeah.
And instead saying, oh, I've held a mask so that other people could process their mental health. Oh, I've showed up for my kids over and over and over again today. Oh, I've gone and bought groceries and X, Y, and Z and handled all the business that's necessary to.
Right.
And also, babe, how can we still create time? And I think that that's the tension of marriage, of making sure, or the importance of making sure we still date, making sure we still connect, is saying, how do you not get the last straw of my energy at the end of the day because I've given it out so many other places, and then I'm just not
Mhm.
leaving you enough of me and enough of my good, healthy, rejuvenated self. And I think that that's maybe one of the biggest cruxes of a marriage is or a
Yeah.
partnership is we give and give and give and give and we trust that this person will be here and so we forget to give to them too. And
Mhm.
so that's a whole nother conversation, but I appreciate you sharing. Looking at
Yeah,
the time, let's get into 60 seconds to centered.
let's do it.
What I want to bring into the play 60 seconds to centered is short pauses help your nervous system recover from constant stress and micro decisions. So breath work, bodily awareness, things like that shift brain from reactive to intentional. And so coming out of the subconscious and into the conscious of pausing physically, slowing down your body for a moment. Then the second one is notice and name the overwhelm or name the noise. So your example of like, oh, physically stopped. I turned on the TV and then I said, oh, what's actually happening? Like, what am I feeling? Oh, I'm feeling annoyed. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling interrupted. And then the third is prioritize one clear next step. We don't have to have 20.
Mm.
We don't have to have 40. It's just what's one thing that's calm, that's helpful, or that's focused. What matters most right now? And so maybe it was connecting with your husband, or maybe it's connecting with my kids, or whatever it may be. And then the fourth is anchor yourself, a short breath, a mantra, or something to solidify the calm. So saying, okay, I feel this way. And also, I'm safe with my spouse, or oh, I'm cozy on the couch. I'll get back to the show in a minute. I'm going to invite him into this space. So pause physically, notice or name the overwhelm, prioritize the next clear step, and then anchor yourself in something that's calming or grounding. And what about you? What is your journal for us this week? Journal prompt.
So the journal prompt this week is think about a decision you've been avoiding or putting off lately. What's underneath that avoidance? Is it fear of making the wrong choice, exhaustion from all the other decisions you've made already, or is it something else? And I think we're going to leave that there because I think even just being able to sit in that is almost like an awareness exercise Yeah, think about a decision you've been putting off and really think about what is underneath that avoidance.
And then let's come back to that in the new year because that's powerful. And then share because we want us to human well. We want us to live a life that is worth living, especially as we head into 2026. That's a fun way to reset. So good to be with you as always, Jen. Listeners, thank you. This is her huddle discussing decision fatigue. Say that 10 times fast for something fun to do this week. And we will see you next week. Be well. Cheers. Love y'all.
Bye, everybody.